Welcome to Asian ID. What happens when a face the audience has learned to protect suddenly becomes one that commands the battlefield when Hae-in, long defined by softness and vulnerability, steps into armor and no longer worship the skirt but the flames of war? Isn't it more than a role change, but a direct challenge to expectation itself? For months, viewers had grown accustomed to her tearful eyes and gentle presence, the kind that invites protection rather than fear, hadn't they? So when she trades flowing dresses for cold steel, when innocence hardens into resolve, doesn't that transformation feel almost unsettling in its intensity? Is this still the same actress, or are we witnessing the birth of someone entirely new? From late 2025 into early 2026, her rise was nothing short of relentless. Wasn't it one collaboration soared to tens of millions in popularity, another broke hundreds of millions in views, and yet another crossed the billion mark? Doesn't such momentum create its own kind of gravity when success becomes expected? Isn't the real danger no longer failure, but stagnation? And perhaps that is why this decision feels like a gamble, doesn't it? To abandon a formula that works, to step away from a persona that guarantees numbers. How many would dare to risk it? Isn't it far easier to remain adored than to risk being doubted all over again? Yet standing beside her this time is not an unfamiliar uncertainty, but a different kind of stability, embodied by Lee Ruoxin. Isn't it? An actor whose name carries the lingering warmth of past pairings, particularly with Zhao Ying, where repeated collaborations have built a quiet trust among audiences. Doesn't that trust become a form of invisible currency when viewers recognize him? Don't they also recall the emotions he once delivered, the connections he once made believable? And when he steps into a new story, doesn't he bring those expectations with him, like shadows that follow every performance? So what happens when these two forces meet, one seeking reinvention, the other carrying familiarity? Does their pairing create balance, or tension, or something far more unpredictable? Can stability and transformation coexist without canceling each other out? The story they enter is no longer built on fragile romance, is it? In a narrative of rebirth, revenge, and war, where the heroine fights not for love but for justice, doesn't the emotional center shift entirely when a woman disguises herself, returns to the battlefield, and chooses vengeance over vulnerability? Isn't that already a departure from everything audiences expect? And when love emerges not from longing glances but from shared danger, from standing side by side against death itself, doesn't it feel more earned, yet also more restrained? Isn't there something profoundly different about affection forged in survival rather than desire? For Hae-in, this role is not simply about wearing armor, is it? It is about shedding an identity, confronting the limitations of perception, and asking a difficult question: how far can an actor go before the audience refuses to follow? Because audiences are loyal, but they are also cautious, aren't they? They fall in love with a version of someone, and when that version changes, doesn't uncertainty begin to creep in? Will they embrace her strength, or will they quietly miss the softness they once adored? And what of the production itself, with larger-scale battle scenes, heavier costumes, and an ambition to move beyond the cheap label often attached to short dramas? Isn't this also a test of the industry's own evolution? Can a format built on speed and intensity truly hold the weight of epic storytelling? As the release date approaches, anticipation grows louder, doesn't it? In discussion forums and recommendation lists, the title appears again and again, not because it is proven, but because it dares to be uncertain. Doesn't uncertainty often attract more attention than certainty ever could? Viewers are not just waiting for a story, are they? They are waiting for an answer to a question they may not even realize they are asking. The sweet girl become a general without losing what made her special? Can a familiar actor create new chemistry without relying on old patterns? Can a short drama step beyond its limits and become something more? And when the first episode finally unfolds, when armor clashes and silence replaces softness, when two characters meet not in comfort but in conflict, won't the truth reveal itself in the simplest way possible? Not in numbers, not in rankings, not in expectations, but in a single feeling that either reaches the audience or doesn't. Do we believe her? Thank you for watching the video. See you again.